Hello, how's everybody doing? All right, so I mentioned last night that I was doing a live. So here I am doing a live talking about Pluto's imminent arrival again in Aquarius. I want to clarify something pretty quickly. Graciously, Tambria, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Shantae, 523, hello. Marketing Guru, Miss Peavy, Dion Marie. Yo! The AB verdict is in the house, all the way from India. I don't know, I always imagine I know your family's from Tamil Nadu, but I don't know if you're from Tamil Nadu. Hello. So anyway, I just wanted to make a correction, not that I made, but that I'm seeing on the interwebs. So Pluto is leaving Capricorn tomorrow, but he's going to go back into Capricorn, I think September 2nd, until November 20th, 21st or something like that. So around my birthday. So that's important because people have been saying Pluto is leaving Capricorn forever for the remainder of your life. And it's not true. So that's one thing I want to clarify. And I posted some videos, including one from Lurie Favors Daniels. Or is that, no, that's probably reverse. Lurie Daniels Favors. I posted a video from her. She is someone I've known, I want to say 21 years. Someone I knew when I lived in Bed-Stuy and have stayed in touch with virtually. And what I can say is that she and her husband, and I think now her children, have been dedicated activists in challenging white imperialism and racism and, in terms of improving the condition of Black people. And she posted a video, and it's related to some things that I've been saying for years, and I think it is instrumental and important to talk about this related to Pluto's entry into Aquarius. And I also posted something from the from International Academy of Astrology, because I work with the person who has posted that, and I also supply some of the astrology. So that may also give you somewhat of a guide into understanding what does it mean to have Pluto moving from Capricorn into Aquarius. So first, going back to what Lurie posted, with Pluto moving into Aquarius, what I want you all to kind of think about and be prepared for is a question related to sovereignty. So the word to keep in mind is sovereignty. Where do you have your sense of being sovereign, having your power, having this sense of control? And that's a general word related to Pluto. But I think the broader word we can think about related to Aquarius is what is our level of sovereignty matched with our integrity and how we also integrate with others. Now, I know that's a loaded word, right? When you're talking about integration, I don't have to be with other people. But here's the thing. Integration doesn't just have to be along racial lines, but how we maintain a certain integrity with our hearts, in terms of what we believe in, but also maintaining integrity in terms of the general order that we are part of. And we are part of a general broader order, wherever you are, however you're looking at it. And the real question becomes, when we're talking about sovereignty, how much do you want it? Is it really yours? Are you willing to fight for it? Are you willing to die for it? Some might even say, are you willing to kill for it? I'm not encouraging you to kill anyone. But are you willing to kind of be on the line for it? And I think that's important to grasp. Why are you talking about these things? Well, there's some as a precedent that's always been set with astrology. One of the things that I lament that has happened with astrology in the last 10 years or so, especially with the growth of social media. Now, there's a lot to celebrate, but there's some measure to lament. What I lament is that I guess to kind of become like the CNN, each individual astrologer becoming like the CNN of astrology. Now, just in, we got this. We focus in on just one particular thing that's happening, like Pluto's entry into Aquarius, and we don't think about other precedents, other things that have happened, other things that signify this particular transition. And among the things you can think about is December 2020. Why December 2020? Well, this is also when Saturn and Jupiter conjoined at that 0 degree of Aquarius that we're experiencing or will experience starting tomorrow again. So you might think about as a particular point of reference, what kind of things were surfacing for you around that time. And that goes also into January 2021. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, think about January 2021. December 2020, January 2021. You may have had a good number of personal shifts, but at least in the United States, and I know that there are many people here who are not in the United States, but one thing we recognize is that our country was in the throes of what seemed to be an insurrection and some challenge. Now, the other precedent to think about is that, we've been talking, we being astrologers, been talking about all these years about Pluto being in Capricorn and Pluto having his Pluto return. But here's the thing. The United States, as we know it in terms of cementing its constitutions, its Bill of Rights, all these particular things, didn't really congeal as the country we know, and many of us may love, or however we want to designate it, until Pluto went into Aquarius. The Bill of Rights was more articulated as a question of, statements for people when Pluto went in Aquarius. So what does that mean? Well, the sense of sovereignty for the people. What does it mean for the people, for the country, for the individuals in it, in terms of their integrity, to belong? What rights do you have? What power do you have? And so the question of rights, the question of what's yours, what's not, what we share, is something that we can expect to become much more prominent as Pluto moves into Aquarius. Also dealing with aspects of community and the sense of how we're building or not building community. That also becomes important as Pluto makes more headway into Aquarius. So I do want people to grasp that this is an important shift, both in terms of a collective, but individually. Now, you might think, okay, individually you haven't sent anything to me. What does it mean? Well, this is where you have to look at where Pluto enters in terms of your chart, both in terms of what house, depending on the house system you use. And that's when you might need to consult with an astrologer if you are not one yourself. That's not a plug for me. I mean, it could be anybody. You could go see Catherine Urban. You could go see Grenadine. You can go see Cosmophysics. You can go see Ra. Any number of astrologers, I believe, are quite qualified. You can see the AB Verdict, who's in India, but, have Zoom, can go anywhere. There's any number of astrologers you can see to consult about your personal chart. Now that I said that, so Ashwin Subramanian is, AB, I think uses Vedic astrology. I'm pretty sure, and probably uses the sidereal zodiac, so it's going to be a little different, but similar kind of messaging. I think the wisdom comes through regardless. And what becomes important for you to know is what house system is it going to, or what house is it going to enter in terms of your chart, but also what planets, and that becomes significant. So as Pluto enters Aquarius, he's going to be directly opposite to my moon. in Leo. So that's going to have some significance for me. No need to get into it here because you're probably not here to like, well, what's going to happen to Sam Reynolds? Well, you probably are like, well, let Sam Reynolds figure out what's going to happen for Sam Reynolds. And I can get more into that, but that's to give you an idea of how to deal with it. And the precedents you might think about, because we're not without precedents. I mean, in this sense, I think astrology is a lot like the law. The precedent has been set in terms of Saturn and Jupiter conjoined in Aquarius, but it's also been set from the 1990s, I would say around 95, 96, when Uranus went into Aquarius. The precedent has been set when Neptune was in Aquarius some time back. So this is not without precedent in your life unless you are indeed 23 years old or 24 years old and you're like, well, I've never seen that shit before. It was before Uranus going into Aquarius. It was before I was born, or Neptune going into Aquarius. So you might reflect back on, how did that manifest? What did that mean for you? So for me, it's come in alignment with some moves, like moving house. It's also come in alignment with thinking about more my sense of place in the world. It's also come in alignment in terms of moving into my 12th house. I'm a Pisces rising. It's also been where probably I'm, excavating some inner work through, things in my psyche and understanding of things. But here's the big thing when we're talking about sovereignty and going back to Larry and what I shared on my feed. The question is, again, what are you going to stand for in terms of assessing your rights? And I'm about to, wade in some controversial waters. I don't think it's that controversial. But when I brought this up on Twitter before, I've met with some pushback. So here it goes. Real power is going to require real boots on the ground. What Larry was talking about in that video I posted, whether you agree with the politics of Moms for Liberty or whether you're, once you learn more about it, completely antithetical to it, just focusing and protesting and grumbling and rumbling on the interwebs, on Twitter and on Instagram or on Threads isn't real power. And I'm not going to say it's not powerful. I'm not going to say it doesn't accrue some measure of power. But institutions largely need to focus in terms of things that at least interpenetrate into not just the cyber world, but, financial institutions, money, all tangible things. And people, you can get mad at, folks like, if this is not your politics, like Moms for Liberty, and things that they're challenging. You can definitely get mad about it and be like, who do they think they are? And, and they're, stomping on trans rights and that they're, also aligned with the Daughters of the Confederacy, all these particular things. All that's true. But here's what I've been observing about Republicans, and you guys probably know some measure of my politics, so I'm not going to try to obfuscate it. Republicans have been playing the long game. They've been playing the Saturn game, which is another sign, another planet that rules Aquarius. It's the only planet for me. I don't recognize Uranus as the ruler. I don't recognize Uranus as the ruler of Aquarius. But I do recognize Saturn. So Pluto is going from one Saturn sign to another manifestation of it. And what I believe this signifies, especially as we're talking about dealing with our sense of rights, right, which is more the message that we get from Pluto's entry into Aquarius. When I say, what are you willing to stand for? It means kind of like more literally boots on the ground, organizing, talking with people, engaging people, looking to build institutions that facilitate more what you want to see in the world in terms of ways in which you build community. If you're not doing that or can't do that at any particular level, and you think the only thing, I'm making a distinction, the only thing you can do is like just talk about it on the web, realize, I'll put it in strong terms, people who you might perceive not necessarily that they are, but perceive as your enemies. They're organizing. They're meeting in person. They're getting money together. I mean, most of our human history has been focused on meeting in person. This cyber world that we've created is new. And I think it has its limitations that we need to acknowledge more. And the more we're not acknowledging these limitations and saying like, well, you know, it just translates into organizing people and we can do things and make our statement, you know, just on the web and, you know, have our protests, it's going to require more of us. It literally is going to require maybe even shutting some shit down. Like, again, another criticism, and I, you know, doing my own work related to astrology, and I know I'm also going to have to go beyond that, but one particular thing, people have gotten, I think, in a certain bad habit where they just think it's just enough to kind of show up and protest on the street and, you know, say whatever, free Palestine, support Israel, you know, all these other different things. And whatever system you want to address, whether we're talking about the police, because I also have talked about Pluto and Capricorn related to policing before. I've also talked about how we might see those changes with Pluto moving into Aquarius as well. But the powers that be have come to recognize, like, that's not a threat to them. Do you have a permit? Oh, you don't have a permit? Then we have to shut your protest down. Or if you have a permit, you know, it's between these hours, and along this street, and that's pretty much what you should do. And do you think change is going to come from that? Do you think, you know, that you're really kind of serving it to the man with that? I mean, no, you're not. If we're not willing to shut things down, and I'm giving you a clue because I've also studied policing for a number of years. If you're not shutting things down in multiple arenas that force police to work overtime and, you know, be stretched to the limit, the impact is going to be long-term minimal. Just saying. So this Pluto and Aquarius on a personal level will have certainly a lot of impact, but it is going to be a call to sovereignty for us, as we the people, not just in America, but even beyond. And I think that's an important moment. You know, what Lurie was kind of expressing in that video, I've been saying for years. Like, I'll give you another example. Republicans, you know, for those who are, if we're talking about by party, because I could say in a broader scale, conservatives, they have regular in-person meeting places, either through church, through civic organizations like the Knights of Columbus or the Daughters of the Confederacy. They have meetings where they not only organize, maybe there's even some training, you know, where you can have like these younger kids mouthing off their talking points. They have the conditioning influences or training and preparation that, like I said, are boots on the ground. You know, they're canvassing. What are progressives doing? I haven't seen a progressive talking about, you know, organizing in localized communities. Again, I may be wrong and I'm open to correction. I haven't seen that since Obama, like 2008. What happened? To quote the Joker, did your balls fall off? Like, what happened? Did the ovaries fall through? I mean, I don't know what happened. In terms of what's going to be necessary in order to kind of really push, you know, agendas. And again, I'm talking about one set of agendas where someone is organized. What about another set? And Rebellion NYC? I might be butchering your name. Yeah, but co-opted by nonprofits. I think that all could be true. It could be co-opted by nonprofits, or again, confusing internet power for real power. And also, yes, it could be, as Abundant Heart Tarot says, folks got complacent. Well, here's the message. We can't be. For those who, and I was one of those people lamenting the Supreme Court's decision, with Roe versus Wade. That was part of the long game. And when I say the long game, I was at the beginning of some measure of that game because I was a fundamentalist minister who believed that abortion was wrong and everything else. I was young, but still, I was part of that, like, oh yeah, overturn it. This isn't right. And so they played the long game, and on that level, they won. Are we prepared to play the long game? Pluto's going to be in Aquarius for 20 years. Karen Good Marable asked me separately in a different post. I get sometimes my social media is confused. Like, is 20 years common for Pluto? No, it's 4 years, about 4 or 5 years longer than he usually stays. Than he usually stays in the sign. So this is a bigger, longer chance for us to do more. Because Pluto's going to be in Aquarius until sometime in, I want to say January 19th of 2044. So again, like 20 years. So that's what's going to be important. So that's kind of my take. I mean, I could say more, but I want to press on. So someone is asking me, Aspen Lady, is this a good aspect? Let me give you an answer that's, I hope, closer to not being a non-answer, but it's an answer. I mean, because you guys are also, some of you are getting to know me. And, I feel different from many public astrologers. I might be different. I don't know. And when I say I'm different, I came as a skeptic. And some measure my skepticism still endures, not of astrology, but astrologers. And so one of the things I'm skeptical about, or I have a lot of reservation about, is talking about whether something is good or bad. Because something that appears good can turn out to be bad, and something that seems bad actually turns out to be very good. So I think that's important. So when you ask me, like, is it a good aspect? I don't know. Like, so for instance, if you had to lose your house, lose your husband or partner, for a time in order to kind of be on a path to real wealth and support and sovereignty, is that bad? Or is it good? I might think it's good. But you might short-term look at it and be bad. I mean, Pluto's going to be in a sign of your chart for 20 years. Now, I don't think he's going to be, fucking up everybody for 20 years, right? I know some people like, I hated Pluto in Capricorn, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was like 16 years long, I mean, was your life a mess and in complete disarray for 16 years? Now, I know that's true for some people, but a lot of people was like, well, it was up and down, right? It wasn't quite like Pluto going like, take, and here's that bitch, and, I mean, it wasn't, that didn't necessarily happen for most people. So it's going to signify more particular things that are going to happen off and on. I think the big deals, if I had to put it from my observation, is that as Pluto changes signs and go into another sign, and then as he leaves, that's where if we're talking singularly about houses, that's where we can register the effects. If we're talking about it related to planets, then it's going to register related to the planet and what it rules. So like I talked about my moon, it's going to affect some measure of my sixth house. So, I mentioned in a live, so it's not a big secret, I'm moving from this particular place and I'm moving into my own. And so this signifies, right, Pluto, going opposite to my moon, that this domicile, I know I'm going into a powerful period with things related to my home or my living. So this is one particular thing to have here. Okay, so you guys, connect. Abundant Heart Tarot is greeting Angelica, and I guess you meet through the Tarot Ladies world. who's great. I mean, Teresa is awesome. Yeah, so Abundant Heart Tarot says we have to play the long game. People pick a cause you're passionate about and single-mindedly work on it. Yeah, vote reform, food security, abortion, trans rights. And again, I do believe in free speech, meaning, if someone has a contrary opinion to me, my goal isn't just like, no, bitch, you're wrong. My goal is like, well, let me understand where you're coming from first. And there may be nuances that we can agree on or particular caveats where we have some measure of understanding. And that's where we can find maybe some aspect of common ground. But I think what has happened, especially in the last 7 or 8 years, is like if someone voices a completely different opinion than you or identifies in a certain way different from you, they become like wholeheartedly your enemy. I don't think that's productive. I don't think that works. I think that's also contrary to what the lessons we're getting with Saturn and Pisces. I have people in my family who I patently disagree with on certain issues. One, I still love them. Two, there are points in which we might agree. I'll give you an example. And again, outing myself in some particular way here. I was never, ever for the vax mandates. Never. I did get vaccinated, so before you like, are you one of those people, you hate vaccines? And blah. Nope. I'm not one of those people. But forcing people to do things with their body that, forcing people to do things with their body, I think is contradictory. I'm an advocate for choice for women with their bodies. So to kind of go around saying that, no, but you got to get the vaccine, you got to get the shot. And it's a contradiction for me. Now, this may not be true for everybody. I have other friends who believe that vaccine mandates kind of help save the world. I don't agree with them. I don't think that's what happened. I've been vaccinated. I haven't done that recently, but I've been vaccinated. So even after I got a booster, 2 months after I got the booster, I still got COVID. So I'm like, okay, it didn't save my world per se from COVID, in that sense. But I think it's more recognizing, again, going back to that word sovereignty, how we connect and finding some space where we can really talk. And I think that becomes important. After all, you're saying they weren't forced, they were just told not to show up to work. So people in New York, for instance, lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods, and there really wasn't any kind of compensation for that. Even when Mayor Adams has agreed like that they can reapply for their jobs. What? But anyway, we're not going to go into differences of opinions because, like I said, I respect that. I think intention does become important, which again relates to the integrity, relates to like with Aquarius being an air sign, it's more about how we think about community, we think about connection. And I think the mindset that I think we can cultivate as Pluto goes, that is a matter of, how we might really cultivate the sense of community. So I see some people, I understand what people are saying with like, oh, it doesn't prevent you from catching COVID. It just minimizes symptoms. Maybe. It depends on the person. But again, mandating that people should have it and that, you're going to lose your job or whatever and your livelihood, I think that was wrong. That was my opinion. I know. I've looked at the science, and I think the science is getting kind of wacky. And I think that's where, our government may also be failing us. I think, for instance, one particular thing that I just saw today, California has just issued a statement where they say, like, if you are infected with COVID, you just need 1 day of isolation. 1 day of isolation before you can go back out there. What? I mean, that's not even true. Like, that's not even true for a cold. An incubation for a cold is like three days or more. It can be that. So I think that becomes really important to think about. Well, like if I got COVID today, God forbid, if I got COVID today, I'm staying in the fucking house. Probably for the 5 days. I mean, it used to be longer, like 7 days or 10 days, I think it was. I'm staying in the house. So I think, we're on our own. And what that means, though, is that we're going to have to look after each other. Because it's not just going to be dependent on government. So I think that becomes another important thing for us to deal with. Rather than just, relying on government. Because, even though our government was largely formed as Pluto went to Aquarius, I think we need to really, focus on that. Oh, so K Dermo is telling me that it's like this in Georgia. I didn't know that. 24 hours free improving, and they want the kids back at school. It's weird to me. It's kind of like, you don't know if you're not even, that's not even like for a cold, or even the flu. We give stricter measures for the flu to that in some degree. All right, so I probably have isolated some people, like, oh, I thought Seth was cool, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm not here just to be someone's cool. I'm here to be me, share what I think, share what I feel. And that's kind of the message of this Pluto in Aquarius, where we can kind of find the ways that we come together rather than like, well, you believe such and such. Okay. I don't believe as you believe. Does that make me a horrible person? And I think that becomes, where we can rethink. I could go more into it. I see, some statements like COVID is to take down capitalism. Again, I think that's another thing that may come up, our economic systems. What does that tangibly mean? I mean, I'm anti-corporate. Corporatism, I think, really changes a lot, and then especially with the idea that corporations become people. But what does it mean to be anti-capitalist? And how prepared are people to go against capitalism? So I think that becomes important for us to start considering. Anyway, much love to all of you. King Simon, I saw earlier you said Assalamu alaikum, so wa alaikum salam. Thank you. Angelica, always great to see you. The Scorpio love. And I see Nariana is here. Also more Scorpio love. Daniela Veras, hello. Scorpio love. I mean, I see, you just going through and picking the Scorpios? I mean, there's some people whose charts and signs I know, and there's some I don't. Hello, Tiffany. I wonder who Shafus. I wonder who that is. You look familiar, but there's just little pictures here, so I can't make everything out. Allison, hi Allison, assalamu alaikum. But anyway, thank you all for joining. And I also see, I could say, Sensenia, Guten Tag. We were talking about Germany and German earlier, so that's cool. Anyway, I hope everyone has a good weekend, a safe one, and we'll talk with you all más tarde.